So how lucky are we to be running in an age of Megablasts and Metaspeeds? But it does toss up the problem of which one you choose for an event, for a half marathon or for a full marathon. That's what I'm here to discuss today, and yes, I do have a definitive answer. So let's spend 30 seconds quickly talking about the stats. The Megablasts, which I have here in the green Ekiden colorway, have an 8mm drop from 45mm at the back to 37mm at the front. They weigh about 225 grams in my US 9.5. They contain FF Turbo Squared foam, which is bouncy and energetic, but not extremely soft, and they do not contain a carbon plate. The Metaspeed Sky Tokyos, which I also have here in the green Ekiden colorway, have a 5mm drop with 39.5mm at the back and 34.5mm at the front. They weigh about 168 grams, which is absolutely astounding in my US 9.5, and they contain two different types of foam. Above the carbon plate, they contain FF Turbo Plus, and below the carbon plate, they contain the new FF Leap foam. So let's start by discussing the similarities between these two shoes. They are both very, very good for fast paces. They both contain elite level foams, as we've just discussed. They both feel increasingly propulsive or energetic the faster you move and the more pressure you put on these shoes. Both contain extremely high quality laces. They are ridged, they hold themselves in place as you're doing them up, and they are a good length, which means that if you do a runner's knot or lockdown lacing or whatever we might call it, there is enough lace left over to actually tie a double knot, as opposed to other shoe brands, hello Adidas, where you need tweezer fingers to tie that tiny little knot after you've done your runner's lacing. And both shoes offer really solid lockdown with non-stretch uppers, which somehow remain incredibly comfortable even though they do not stretch. And that's about it as far as the commonalities go. Let's talk about the differences. The first one that strikes me is the weight. I've been for a couple of runs over the last few days in early morning cold of Kyoto wearing both shoes. So what I'll do is I'll go out for a run wearing one pair, and then I'll come back home and change into the other pair. What I notice is that when I start running in the Megablasts, it's a really great experience. But then when I come back and I pop on the Metaspeed Skies, I really notice the lack of weight. It's as if I've taken off a huge pair of very, very heavy shoes, which of course they're not, and I've put on something that's light as air. The difference in weight between these shoes, which is about 50 grams, is really noticeable when you go from one to the other. The second big difference is in breathability. These shoes, the Megablasts, keep my feet quite warm on the very cold 0 to 1 or 2 degree mornings here in Kyoto. These shoes, the Metaspeed Sky Tokyos, are incredibly breathable. There's almost nothing there. I mean, you can virtually see through these shoes, and that's what it feels like when you're running in them. My feet get very, very cold. Not so cold that I don't want to run in them, but there's a really noticeable difference when I change from the Megablasts, where my feet are nice and warm and clearly the shoes are not breathing very well, to the Metaspeeds, where all these shoes do is breathe. The next big difference is in stability. The Megablasts, you can run at different paces all day long, from very fast paces to walking, and these shoes will take care of you. They will never feel unstable. The Metaspeeds are the opposite. They feel very unstable unless you are running at a good pace and with good form landing on your midfoot to forefoot. Another difference is in the size or the volume. These Megablasts feel very similar to Superblasts, which is not surprising considering they share a lot of the same specifications. You do know that you're wearing a fairly hefty shoe when you're running in the Megablasts, even though it's extremely light. The Metaspeed Sky feels very, very different to that. It feels almost as if you're wearing, no, I won't say that you're almost as if you're barefoot, because you do know that there is a large chunk of foam under the front of your foot. But apart from that, it feels as if there's nothing else on your foot. You don't really notice anything else because it's so light. And one interesting thing I noticed this morning about the Megablast when I was running along a trail that contains small pebbles is because of this little skirt around the edge of the heel cup that I don't think is really necessary. It's just there as a design feature. That tends to catch rocks. And so a couple of times on this morning's run, I was only on the trail part of the run for about 10 minutes. Twice I had to stop to remove rocks from my shoes because they'd been caught in this little skirt and then had gone in through there. I think if this skirt did not exist, then the rocks would have just bounced out again. And the final difference is really just in comfort. The Megablast is really comfortable in any situation, whether you're walking or running, whether you're heel striking or forefoot striking, it's comfortable no matter what. The Metaspeed Sky, on the other hand, is comfortable when you are running at good pace and with good form, landing on your midfoot to forefoot. Otherwise, it's actually pretty terrible to walk in, and at a slow pace, it doesn't feel very comfortable at all. And one more thing when it comes to comfort, and particularly for those who are used to Asics shoes, Asics sizing, particularly Superblast, is that the forefoot is mildly narrower. It's just a tiny bit less room in the toe box. I do have a relatively broad foot. My feet are okay in these shoes. I notice the slightly narrower width, but it is not a problem. I did not go up a size. I didn't go up half a size. I still use my US 9.5 and it's fine. But for those with very broad feet, I would definitely be trying these on before I ordered them online. So that's it. The similarities and the differences between the Megablast and the Metaspeed. Which is best for you during an event? I'd like to give you the answers to that, but first I'd love to ask you a favor. It really helps me and this little channel a lot if you like and subscribe to these videos. Benny and I have a whole lot of content coming out. We've got a lot of plans for this channel and we don't want you to miss out. So if you could subscribe, that would be wonderful. Thank you. So as I said, for an event, perhaps a half marathon, perhaps a full marathon, which of these shoes is best for you? Well, as I promised, I do have definitive answers for you. Number one, if you are a heel striker, then you do not want to be running in the Metaspeed Skies. If you're a heel striker, the Megablast is absolutely the choice for you. Number two, if you're not as confident as you'd hoped about the outcome of your training, if perhaps it was interrupted by injury, or if you simply weren't hitting the paces or the distances that you were hoping, then once again, the Megablast is the choice for you. No matter your form during the event, whether you're running fast with great form or whether you slow down to a jog or whether you're walking, the Megablast will take care of your feet at any pace. And number three, if you're a midfoot to forefoot striker and you're confident about the outcome of your training block, then the Metaspeed Sky Tokyo is absolutely the choice for you. They're lighter and therefore that makes them more efficient and faster. They're much more breathable, so they will keep your foot cooler and more comfortable throughout the event. And finally, they're just less bulky. And that carbon plate does give you a little bit of pop at toe off. And when you consider that during a marathon, you might do 40,000 or more steps, a little bit of pop at each toe off is going to make an enormous difference. But ultimately, both of these shoes are brilliant choices for half marathons or full marathons. I would happily wear either, but it would depend on how well I've trained and how confident I'm feeling before the run. If I've trained really well during my training block and I'm really confident about my form and pace, then the Metaspeeds are going to be my go-to. If I want to be a bit more confident about being comfortable and surviving the event at various paces, then the Megablast are the shoes that I'm going to go with. So what's your marathon shoe of choice? Is it one of these mean greenies or is it something else? I'd love to know. Please comment below. And for more shoe reviews and news from Benny and I, please remember to like and subscribe. We wouldn't want you to miss out. We'll see you next time.